Hi guys, welcome to another Road Pilgrim car review, and today we have the new BMW X1 on review with us. And as you can see, it's a very nice grown up, handsome looking car. And for those of you who don't know, in Singapore, the X1, the predecessor of this car, actually sold super well in Singapore. It was super well received in general. And so actually we are really excited to see how the new X1 performs, because there are some key differences. With the new COE increase of recent months, the new X1 is actually specified for Category A COE, which means that there has been a sort of decrease in the power rating of the car. But at the same time, there has also been a retune of the drivetrain. So we're going to see how the car performs and whether or not it lives up to the expectations, or whether it's a worthy successor to the very, very popular predecessor. Alright, so let's go. Alright, so this is the exterior of the new BMW X1, and the first thing you need to know is that this car has actually grown quite a bit from its predecessor, and it's grown to the extent where actually visually, if you were to look at it from afar, it resembles the old BMW X3 in terms of size. So I would say that it actually looks pretty full grown already, and it doesn't really look like an entry-level SUV anymore. Generally, the styling has also grown up quite a bit. It's a lot more mature, less playful, but in that sense, it's also more classy. So for people who are buying the car with some of the badging and imaging in mind, I think this is a very promising sign, and this is a very good thing for people who are buying the car for that reason. So this particular trim level that you see in front of you is actually the regular xline one. There is an M Sport version which comes with different trim bits, but honestly the differences are quite subtle, and this one already looks quite sporty and good, so I wouldn't really do anything about this actually, as in the M Sport trim does cost a few $1,000s more. I don't think it's particularly necessary, but if you think it is, then it doesn't cost all that much more anyway. So this particular trim level comes with 19-inch wheels as standard. They look quite nice already, but as you can see, the car does have a little bit of additional room in the wheel hub. So I think this car could do with slightly bigger wheels if you wanted a more aggressive stance and a more aggressive appearance. Moving on to the back, this is the rear of the car. As you can see, everything looks very neat, very angular, and actually quite futuristic. And one of the things that I really like about new BMWs is the fact that the tail lamps now have this sort of matte finish to them. A little bit of like a smoked finish, which I think looks very contemporary, very modern, and I think very in line with the demographic that's going to be looking at this car. So right now we are going to jump into the car and show you what the car looks like on the inside. But before we do that, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. We have new reviews every single week, so it'll be really great to have you with us on those reviews as well. Alright, let's go! Okay, so now we are inside the BMW X1 and we're going to check out its cabin. And overall, I think that this new cabin is a huge step up from its predecessor. So for those of you who remember the old BMW X1, I think some of the bits felt a bit utilitarian, and it felt more entry-level than this car is actually. So seeing this new car's interior, it does feel like the entry-level into BMW's SUV segment is actually been elevated quite a little bit. So when you get into this car, and if you don't know much about BMWs, you might actually feel like it's not an entry-level car, which is a good thing, right? Generally, the design language of the cabin follows the new generation of BMWs, which we first saw with the BMW iX, which was an electric SUV. Now, with this car, you get some of the features that you saw on the iX, such as the floating center console. And this actually houses your start-stop button, your shift selector, your drive selector. It's a mode button, volume button, hazard lights are here as well. So this is a nice, neat little package that I think helps to elevate the overall appearance of the cabin. Up front here, you've got two cup holders, you've got two USB-Cs, which you can use to connect your phone, and you've also got a phone holder right here, which also comes with this nifty it's like a catch, it's like a plastic catch where you can sort of clamp down your phone so it doesn't fly about when you chuck this car into corners. I'm just kidding, you're probably not going to chuck this car into like around corners. Up front here, you've got the latest OS 8, which sees this integrated screen design. So your driver's instrument panel, which is full digital, is actually combined with the infotainment unit, and it comes in this nice little curved screen here. So this curved screen is a little bit smaller than what you get on other new BMWs, but the overall appearance is still the same. So a little bit of Russian doll styling going on there. Around the rest of the car, you've got soft touch materials where you would most commonly touch. So up here, the steering wheel, there is no longer a dash cover, instrument cover here. So there's, that really isn't a point of consideration anymore. But this material up here, it is actually soft touch, so that's quite nice. And you can see with the beige interior that is spec'd on this test car, it's actually got a really nice upmarket feel, and I really like that. So with that, let's jump into the back of the car and check that out, and we can take a look at the space that the X1 offers. Okay, so this is the back of the BMW X1, and this seat is in my regular driving position, and I'm 175 meters tall. And now I'm at the back, and this is the amount of legroom that I have, which is crazy, right? Considering that this is the entry-level car from BMW, and considering that this is sort of like considered a compact SUV, and this is the amount of space that you actually have. So space utilization in the cabin is super well done in this car. So you've got ample amount of legroom, and there's a little bit of a deepness in this footwell. So when you're climbing into the car, it does feel like you're stepping into a bowl a little bit. But I think that's probably a good thing, because if not, you would be seated in quite a fetal position, which is probably not comfortable in the long run. So the fact that it's got this nice footwell, I think it's not bad. For a entry-level premium luxury SUV from BMW, you get features like sliding seats in the rear, which is amazing, because then you can make your boot bigger or smaller depending on what your needs are for the day. But I think living in this position gives me a very, very comfortable seat at the back. There are not too many features at the back, but you do have two aircon vents. You don't have independent climate controls here, so it just follows the temperature and the blower speed from the driver's side. But you do have air vents here, which is still a plus. And you can shut off the air vents if you like. And right below the air vents, you've also got two more USB-C cable points for your rear passengers to charge their phones on the way, which makes this a whole, this whole car quite a practical family car, because when you're going for trips up north or when you're going for further drives, then all these little features just kind of add up, and they kind of elevate the entire experience of the whole family, and not just the driver, right? Because even your passengers, they get to enjoy some of these things as well. One thing that I've noticed from this car is that in the center console here at the back, typically it would be quite hard for you to swing your leg over, but BMW have actually created this little bit of a cutout which allows you to quite comfortably shift your feet over, which is amazing, because then all of a sudden this car becomes quite a lot better at carrying three at the back, because now the middle person actually has some space in terms of in terms of leg room. So yeah, pretty amazing that this entry-level SUV from BMW actually delivers so much practicality, not just in terms of the overall package, but also in terms of cabin space utilization. Rear passengers are well taken care of as well. So with that, let's go take a drive in the car, and then we can round off this review and see how the X1 actually performs on the road. Let's go. Alright, so now let's get on the road with the BMW X1, and to get things started, let's talk a little bit about engines and powertrains. To start things off, This BMW X1 runs on a 1.5 litre 3-cylinder turbocharged engine, and this is the same power unit that you'll find on all the BMW cars with the 1.6 range. So cars like the 216 Gran Coupe, 216 Active Tourer, which I reviewed a couple of weeks ago, all use the same drivetrain. And the first thing you notice about this car and this drivetrain is that despite being spec'd for Category A COE, it is actually very punchy, and I actually think that the engine does a really good job around town. And you can hear it as well, it makes quite a lovely noise. It's actually pretty satisfying. And if you compare this to its predecessor, which was using a similar power unit but that was spec'd for Cat B, that was spec'd for about 130 plus horsepower, and this is only spec'd for 121 horsepower. You don't really feel the difference, to be like, if I'm really being very honest. This car actually feels smoother to drive and more refined to drive than the predecessor, which this, despite the power loss or the drop in power rating, I think that BMW have done a fantastic job in ensuring that the car still feels punchy to drive and dynamic to drive. So I think that's really one of the main things that you kind of experience when you first get behind the wheel of this new X1. Power is there. In fact, I think the 3-cylinder is probably one of the most refined 3-cylinders you can find on the market right now, because up on the highway, when you're cruising at about 80-90, most 3-cylinders would be pretty stressed out by then. But this particular 3-cylinder still feels like it's got some torque band left. It doesn't feel breathless. And when you're just cruising, it actually cruises at about 1,500 RPM. That's about like at 90 kilometers per hour, which I would say, is comparable to a small 4-cylinder. So in that sense, despite getting a 3-cylinder in this car, you actually get a drive that is almost as refined as a 4-cylinder that you get on other cars. And the other thing that I think is quite pleasant about this car is that despite being bigger than its predecessor, it actually handles really neatly. I mean, it is a BMW after all, so I guess no surprises there. But I think that when SUVs get bigger in general, you do expect them to roll a little bit more, but not in this car. I think it handles very neatly. It's got quite a lot of sharpness in its steering, and it's actually very composed around corners, even when you're punching it a little bit harder. Let's see what. In fact, I think it probably handles better than some of the larger SUVs that I've tested recently, which says a lot considering that this is, after all, an entry-level car from BMW. So around town, when you're going at regular speeds, the steering is actually calibrated to be quite light, which I think makes it very easy to use around town. So if you've got maybe second drivers in the car who aren't really fond of that whole heavy steering thing, then I think you're gonna find that the X1 is actually a really nice option, because it is very easy to maneuver around town. It's got very nice and light steering, but at the same time, when you get up to speed, the steering does increase in weight a little bit, so it all balances out quite nicely. And right now, speaking about second drivers, and in Singapore's context, we usually have one car for the whole family. So there is always this chance that aside from you being the main driver driving the car on a regular weekday, on the weekends you could have maybe say your wife or your partner driving the car, or maybe you've got kids who have just gotten their driver's license and they're driving the car. maybe not so confident in the car. So aside from having nice and light steering, there is another feature that I'd like to show you as well, which is not unique to this car. It's actually found on all BMWs, but this is actually the reversing assistant, which is a feature that I'm actually really fond of, because what it allows you to do is that it allows you to retrace your steps for the last 50 meters. So the car is actually logging in your movements, everything, not just the position of the car, but also the steering inputs. And what it does is that if, let's say, you're entering a small alley and you don't really have a chance for a 3-point turn, then the car actually allows you to backtrack your steps for the last 50 meters for you to get out of that space. So I'm gonna show that to you right now. So I'm just in sort of the middle of the road, and I'm going to exaggerate some movements to, you know, imagine like we are going into a narrow alleyway. So I've done that, okay. And let's say at this point you realize you're kind of stuck. So what you want to do is you put your car into reverse, and then you click on Start Reverse Assistant, and then the car actually takes over steering. And what you need to do then is just to let the car do its steering, and you then control your accelerator and brake pedals. So you tap on your accelerator to get going, and you just moderate it with your brake pedal. So that's pretty cool. As you can see, I'm not touching the wheel at all. The car is doing all the backtracking on its own. And this kind of functions on the principle that if you found a clear path into that particular alleyway, then it is possible, or rather this function allows you to find your way out using that exact same unobstructed path. So I think that's pretty cool. It goes up to 50 meters, and there's a countdown timer for you as well. So now we're at 29 meters, 28, and once it reaches 50 meters, it will stop. So right now I am actually back to my original position where I started from, which is pretty cool. Yeah, awesome. So with that, I'm gonna say that in conclusion, the X1 is actually a really good option for a Cat A car if you're looking for a premium SUV or a premium compact SUV, and you want something that's a little bit more premium, a little bit more posh, with a bit of branding, but at the same time you also want the Cat A COE. I think this is a really good option, and I think it does stand out from its competitors that little bit more. Of course, you know, we have to keep in mind that some of its key competitors like the GLA and the Q3 are already quite due for a revamp. So we'll see in the coming months what the new cars look like and whether or not they catch up to the BMW X1. But in this current juncture, at this current point in time, I don't think that there's a better Cat A premium compact SUV that you can buy. I think the X1 is probably the one to go for. It's got a nice interior, it's quite grown up now, it's a lot better than its predecessor. I think it's a very clear step up. And I think for anybody who was concerned about whether or not this would be a worthy successor, I think it definitely is more than worthy. And for those people who were concerned about the fact that it is now Cat A instead of Cat B, I don't really feel the difference, because I think the new drivetrain has been spec'd or has been tuned to deliver quite a lot of low-end performance, and actually on the highway it's a pretty decent cruiser as well. So yeah, if you have any questions about the car, please leave them in the comments. I'll be more than happy to answer them. And if you have enjoyed this car review and you want to see more reviews like that in the future, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. We've got new reviews coming up every few days or every week, so please stay tuned for that. For those of you who maybe you find that the X1 is still a little bit too big for you and you want something a little bit more compact, we did a review of the 216 Active Tourer, which runs a similar drivetrain, exactly the same drivetrain actually, but that comes in a slightly neater package, a slightly smaller package. So I'll leave a link up here to that other review. And if not, as usual, please take care and stay safe, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.